Fantastic. I think we are a minute past, and as people continue to join, I'm just going to begin. Thank you, everyone, for making the time to join us today for our very first community of practice on strengthening support for children with learning differences. This is our very first session today, and today we are going to be speaking about understanding screening and diagnosis tools for supporting children with learning differences. While we have people join, I would be grateful if you could just drop in your name, your organization, and where you're joining us from in the chat so that we get to know each other better. Great. As we continue, I just have a few guidelines and expectations from this discussion. We have a very exciting 90 minutes planned for you. This is a very safe space. And if you have any questions, any comments, please do raise your hand, ask questions. Please engage with the audience. Please engage with the presenters. We would love your full attention. And if possible, do switch on your video and switch off from other devices. Like I mentioned, please feel free to drop in emojis, reactions, questions in the chat. So coming on to today's agenda, I am very, very excited and grateful to have with us Phyllis Munni, founder and director, Dyslexia Organization Kenya, and Kaimori Karaoke, co-founder and CEO, Learning Differently, also based in Kenya. They are going to be our presenters for today. In the next 87 or so minutes, we are going to briefly be talking about GSF for those of you who may not know GSF, talking through on the Learning Differences project that we have undertaken with Oak Foundation. We'll do a quick icebreaker so we understand where everyone is at. Post which I will hand over to Phyllis and Kuka. Kaimori is called Kuka, by the way, so I'm going to be referring to her as Kuka. Post which I will hand over to Phyllis and Kuka, who are going to, one, talk to you about the different kind of learning differences, talk about screening diagnosis, and then also discuss the tools that they are using within their organizations and in their context. After we have heard about the tools and understood a little bit more about what learning differences or disabilities are, we are going to go into breakout sessions where the audience will have a chance to interact with each other and to discuss what are the different sort of tools they have in their own settings, whether or not it's working for them, and what are some of the gaps that they are facing. In the end, we will have a whole group sharing session where we'll give participants a chance to see how they can contextualize some of these tools and also just identify what are the barriers currently. Post which I will give you some details about our next session, which is going to be held in the end of May. So without further ado, I would like to kick off today's session by telling you a little bit about GSF for those of you who are new here and haven't joined us before. Global Schools Forum is a collaborative community, an innovation accelerator, and a partnership builder for non-state organizations working to improve education at scale for underserved children in low and middle income countries. We were started in 2017, and since then, we have grown our community to 169 organizations spanning 63 countries, collectively running or supporting 1.3 million schools and ECD centers and providing education to more than 1.3 million children. The organization in GSF's community are standalone schools, a diverse set of school networks, and ECD centers working within or across countries, and organizations providing core education support services to non-state schools and to education systems. To tell you why we are here today and why this community of practice was conceptualized. Some of you may be working with children with learning differences or what is more commonly known as learning disabilities. The statistics stand that 9 out of 10 children with disabilities under the age of 5 live in LMICs, yet education systems here in low and middle income countries often fail to provide quality education for these children. Another key challenge here is the lack of teacher training and the lack of data, as there is very little information available to support policy and planning. GSF recognizes that there are many organizations that are actively working to support children with learning disabilities, and there are many other organizations who are looking to be more inclusive in their approaches. Based on this, we have undertaken the scoping study on learning differences, where we have twofold objectives. One, we want to identify the priorities, needs, and challenges of organizations in LMICs who are supporting children with learning differences, and to understand the work that they are doing. And two, to essentially understand how GSF can support these organizations and other organizations who are looking to be more inclusive. As I mentioned, this is a scoping study. We have started with a landscape review, literature review, expert consultations, and focus group discussions, based on which this community of practice was developed. This community of practice, based on the insights, will have now 5 sessions. The first one, of course, is the one we have today on culturally relevant screening tools for early screening and diagnosis, followed by a session on teacher capacity building for inclusive education. We will then move into session 3, discussing inclusive curricula and adaptive assessment strategies. Session 4 will be on differentiated instruction and inclusive pedagogy in low resource classrooms. Finally, tying it all together up in session 5 on engaging caregivers and communities to reduce stigma and support inclusive learning. I will be sharing the invites for the subsequent session. But for now, let's jump into the icebreaker so that we can get to know each other a little bit better. My colleague has put up a QR code. I would request you to please scan the QR code with your phones. Alternatively, you can log into menti.com and use this code. I have dropped it in the chat. You can use the code 188065112. Please let us know if you're facing any trouble.
Hi, Tejaswini. It says it's waiting for the host to start the quiz.
Yeah. Let me just, Mercy, can I present? You all able to see the first question? Great, please fill in your answers.
Key in the code again. Show us the code again, the QR code.
Mercy, could you just pull that up and I can stop? Or, okay. So we have Uganda, Ghana, Nigeria, US, UK, Zambia, Belgium, Kenya, India, a very wide range of participants. I'm going to move on to the next question. How good is the learning differences support in your country? Unfortunate, but not surprising. I support it's suppose it's averaging around 3.5. I'm going to try and share my screen again, if that's okay. Averaging around 3.9. The next question. What does, sorry, it's going to keep. Is this question coming up? What does learning differences or learning disabilities mean to you? If you could just drop in what that means to you. need for more support, diverse views and experiences in class, children with neurological, physical, or other challenges that impact their ability to learn, learning gap and ability to learn due to different learning disabilities. It means that not all children can learn the same way or at the same pace. That's beautiful. LD means invisible difficulties experienced by learners during learning. Recognizing that not everyone learns, processes, or expresses knowledge in the same way, and that's not a weakness, it's a different kind of strength. That is beautiful. Thank you so much for these incredible responses. A spectrum where is the limit between these two notions? We all have learning differences, I agree. Thank you so much for sharing these beautiful answers. I will now hand over with that in view and a little bit more understanding of what your understanding of learning differences or disabilities is. I will now hand over to Phyllis, who's going to walk us through what learning differences mean and talk about invisible disabilities, which some of you also mentioned. Phyllis, over to you.
Good afternoon. It is afternoon in Kenya. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, Phyllis.
Thank you so much, Ted, and for giving me this opportunity to explain about learning difficulties. And what I've seen from people explaining it's a lot of this they have said is actually true. My name is Phyllis Munyi, founder and executive director of Dyslexia Organization Kenya, where we talk about dyslexia and other learning difficulties. So I'll take very little time to explain. So with that little definition about myself, Ted, let's go on. That's about myself. I'm a founder of Dyslexia Organization Kenya, a mother, an advocate, and a pioneer of raising dyslexia awareness in Kenya and Africa. I'm also an internationally trained dyslexia specialist and passionate literacy advocate. And I'm really honored to be part of this, to give this, to speak at this event. So what is learning difficulties? Not all disabilities are visible. And what we are talking today is about that what is invisible. You cannot look by, tell somebody has this learning difficulty by just looking at them. And this is what about 80% of people with disability, majority have learning difficulties that are invisible, and we look at them, we'll see which one are they. And the list is not exhaustive. There could be others that I have not mentioned, but what I have is what is more commonly seen in schools, by teachers, by parents, and a lot of it causes confusion because it looks like the child is pretending or lazy or not working hard by just because it is not visible. It is not like physical disability where you can see and give the child or whatever support they require. So let's go on. So invisible learning difficulties are often referred to hidden learning disability and are cognitive, neurological, and physiological conditions that affect person's ability to learn, process information, but are not immediately apparent. These difficulties significantly affects individual educational experience, even though they may not show outward signs of disability. So let's look at which one they are. I'll explain very briefly. These are many of them that are neurological, but please note that I highlighted one that is at the end. The partial hearing impairment is not a neurological condition. However, it affects a lot. a child's ability to learn, because it is not visible, but the child cannot be seen. So without much delay, one of the main invisible learning difficulty, and I'm happy to say that we have a presenter who has this here. I should not even explain about ADHD, because Kuka lives it herself. So let's go to each one of them. So ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by persistent pattern in attention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. So these children do not have very little attention, and they are very hyper. They can wear you down, they wear people down, they wear parents down. And I don't want to talk much, because I want to leave Kuka to explain what she goes through every day of her life, being an ADHD person. Let's go on to the other one. Dyscalculia is a learning difficulty that affects a person's ability to understand work with numbers. So this child will struggle with basic arithmetic, understanding mathematical concepts, and performing mathematical operations. So you find this child may not even be able to identify multiples from addition, because the signs look the same. They also have problem with division, because and minus, because they also have a lot do with the transposing numbers. Like when they are writing 47, they can write 74 because they do not understand the concept. So they are mainly they may not have any other challenge in reading, but when it comes to maths, and please note that many people say they have problem with maths, but they may not be having dyscalculia. But dyscalculia is basically to do with numbers. They may have no ability to even add very simple calculations with their mentors. But if you have challenges, if you didn't do well in high school or in primary school for maths, doesn't really mean you have dyscalculia. Let's go on. The other one is dysgraphia. Dysgraphia is a learning difficulty that affects writing abilities. Mainly, you'll find this child may have fine motor skill development challenges. So their grip of pencil is very tight or very light. When they are writing, they cannot be able to write on a straight line. They cannot be able to identify beginning of a word to the word. And you find sometimes they do not follow the sentence formation structure. Like they cannot start with a capital letter. They do not have full stops, and their sentence looks like their sentence looks like one word from beginning of the page to the end of the page. Let's go on. I'm going very fast because I don't have much time. Auditory processing disorder is another neurological condition that affects how the brain processes sound. So you find this child will have they have difficulty understanding and interpreting auditory information, even though their hearing ability is normal. So this is again another problem that you find teachers have challenges in class, because they feel like this child is not hearing well. It's like she's not understanding or not hearing well. So you find this child often ask for information to be repeated, like say it again, like they can't be able to explain to hear, and it is not like they are not understanding. So what you need to do as a parent or a challenge or a teacher is to break down the information into small bits, so that this person, or ask this child to rephrase what you have said, so that you can understand that she has understood what you have explained. They also appear to be very forgetful and unorganized. So language processing disorder is another difficulty that affects, it is another neurological condition, and it affects ability to understand, express language. It impacts both receptive that is understanding spoken language or written words, and expressive language, using words to communicate. So you find the child may have challenging informing sentences, vocabulary, understanding spoken word, and all that. So unlike speech disorder, LPD is specifically related to brain difficulties in processing linguistic information. We go on. Non-verbal learning disability is again another one that is invisible. You cannot tell by just looking at person, and this person will have problem understanding the any invisible learning, any learning, any sign language. You know, like in class, at home, we all use non-verbal languages to communicate, but this person may not be able to communicate using non-verbal languages. So you'll have to be expressive talking to this person. Sometimes they might appear like they are pretending, but they are not understanding. And the problem is that we do not know actually that people may have this problem, because it's like even in class, teachers communicate a lot using in non-verbal languages, and the child may not be able to understand. The other one, which is a neurodevelopmental condition, is intellectual disability. Those others that I've explained there, they are commonly, the child may succeed in school with a lot of, with quite a number of, with quite a great support, but an intellectual disability person will have significant limitation in intellectual functioning. Those others that I have said before, they have no intellectual disability, but here you find this child will develop normally, will have gone through the milestones well, but their cognitive or their reasoning capacity is very low. They may not they will have communication skills, they have difficulty with the social skills and activities of daily living. So in a school, this child, in a situation, we just say, they just go through the school system without necessarily understanding anything, but they are being just to grow. So that's that is one that these children just require support, and that to identify some of the things that they can do in life, to or like beadwork, some things to do with work, which again is also very difficult for them. So they may go through life, but they just need to be supported on daily living activities, so that they can just develop like human other people. Let's go on. I talked about partial hearing impairment. This is not a neurodevelopmental disorder, but I brought it here because there are so many children that are not understood by teachers because they have partial hearing loss. I'm talking this from a personal experience. We have children in our school who are not able to hear some sounds. They do not have phonics. They do not understand some phonics. So they will not, a person cannot speak or speak what they've never had. I'm sure you've had children, like, for example, they say stomach. They say stomach because they've never had the sound stomach. Any letter or any word that starts with this, they don't know it. They've never had that sound. The other way to identify a child with partial hearing impairment is probably they're hearing with one ear. So you find somebody that is, the child follows you, like they are trying to see what you are speaking, for them to be able to see the words. So they have a partial hearing impairment. And that's what the parents need to, the child needs to understand. The other one is dyslexia. This is a learning difficulty that is will affect all that I have said. All those ones will, except that they are people with dyslexia do not have intellectual. They do not have intellectual challenges. So dyslexia is a specific learning difficulty that primarily affects reading, and spelling and writing. It is neurological in origin. It means it stems from how the brain processes information, written and spoken. And people with dyslexia often have difficulty with phonological processing, which is the ability to recognize words and sound in spoken language. It can also impact writing, reading, fluency, and comprehension. Intelligence is not part of what affects dyslexia, and it is lifelong. People with dyslexia, they will acquire the skills that they may through training, and the education of a person with dyslexia is like should be done as a therapy way. It is therapy, not using the common method of teaching. They need a different method of teaching, which we'll see how we can implement that. So in a nutshell, and very fast, those are the areas of learning, invisible learning difficulties. I have not exhausted all of them, but these are the common ones that a teacher or a parent will be able to identify in class. You'll find in a class about 5 children have these conditions. In one class, like say, for example, in a room of 20 kids, you find about 5 of them will have one of them, or all of them, or most of them, 1 or 2 of these conditions. So thank you so much. Over to you, Kuka.
Oh, thank you so much, Phyllis, for explaining that. Yes, so I agree with you that like the most specific in psychology, I'm a psychologist, the specific learning disabilities that we consider, and that's where the dyslexia have nothing to do with intelligence. They are found in children with an average to high IQ, but still struggle to learn. And if the learning is coming from a problem that is not physical, then that's when the diagnosis starts. So everyone calls me Kuka. I am Kaimuri Karaoke. I am the co-founder of Learning Differently. It's a startup in Kenya that does a number of things, but that's not where coming to, that does a number of things. So we create awareness about specific learning disabilities. We are providing early screening and screening at different levels and providing interventions for those specific learning disabilities. So my presentation today is dubbed Finding Dora. But before that, of course, I'll start with an icebreaker. Can anyone tell me what do these companies have in common? Put it on the chat, or you can just lift your hand and we can answer this. What do you think these companies have in common? Yes, Rosalind.
Okay, so these are companies that are from creative to innovative, and behind them, the founders or the people that are engineering the ideas are people with different neurodiverse issues. So it could be dyslexia or dyscalculia or ADHD.
Yes, perfect. I think I should record how you've explained it exactly. All these companies were founded by people who have, apart from Microsoft, a lot of them are believed to have the dyslexia. But for Microsoft, people have rumors about what Bill Gates has, but it's geared towards high functioning autism. So he's a really sharp guy. So now 40% of self-made billionaires in the world have a specific learning disability. So, and they are innovative because of how beautiful our brains are. So basically, if we do not provide, let's go to the next one. If we do not provide interventions early, if you don't screen early and support these children, what happens? We are the guys who drop out of school. And we don't know, and especially in Africa, and I don't know, parts of Asia, a lot of people don't know about these specific learning disabilities, and awareness has just started. So we get out of school, drop out of school. Remember, we are frustrated. We have a low self-esteem sometimes. Because of being unable to regulate ourselves, we find ourselves in drugs and alcohol use. We could be violent because remember, we cannot limit ourselves. They say about the estimates from the US and the UK show that about 70% of people in juvenile and prison have presented with learning disabilities. So we could either be what we saw before, or we could be all these things, have low self-concept and suicide, and because all these specific learning disabilities sometimes come pegged with a mental health condition, and mostly anxiety or depression. So when you don't know how you feel, and then now you start, and because you don't know that you have this learning disability and you feel things, sometimes suicide has become an option for people in our spectrum. Next, please. So again, the prevalence, if it's 1 in every 5, you're talking about almost, if you're going to do that estimate and scale it outside, you're saying about 10 million people in Kenya are suffering. About 1.6, I think a fifth of the world is about 1.6 billion. So if you're going to use the same statistics, that's a lot. And also, so what have we done about it? So at Learning Differently, there are 3 things that need to be done. And psychologists, as a psychologist, one of the places we propose is like full-scale integration of how we assess children. So first, what are the advantages of early screening? With the acceptance, when you accept, you will accept the interventions. Then there is success in life. We could be the 40%, and we are the 40% that could make the difference in this world. And then, of course, when you're screened early, you are helped early. So we can go to the next one. So if you accept you're screened early, you can be helped early, and there's also success in life. But so when do we test for specific learning disabilities? We use psychological theories around cognition to be able to peg testing as well, and early screening. Of course, screening can happen at any stage of a child's life, but the chances are that you will discover early screening, and especially if you're in countries that already have policy for compulsory assessment or screening, when the child is just about to join primary level of school. So when they've already understood how to read and write and done all that play school before they join the primary level, that would be a fantastic time to assess, because they've already learned how to read basic words, you can see when a child is struggling with the writing, the math, the reading, auditory processing, visual processing, and ADHD. ADHD, I might also say it's across the intellectual scale. So that's when you can notice that. Then in middle school, you need to test for this because the workload and the delivery of work changes. So some of the children who could not present the symptoms at the early stage, the symptoms can be seen now. And then high school is heavy in any curriculum. In the US, in the African systems, high school is heavy, even the British systems. So basically also test for assessments early in the high school stage so that the child can be advised on interventions that can help them cope within the level of learning that they are in. So now, so how do you test? I love what Phyllis said when she put in a low hearing. One is considered to have a specific learning disability when you've ruled out intellectual disability and a physical disability that affects learning. So basically, we say that, yes, first rule out the physical disability that's hearing impairment, visual impairment. That's one of the things. Then is there a psychological condition, long-term or short-term, that could affect learning? So has the child gone through trauma? Is there PTSD? Do they have anxiety? Do you have depression? Could they have any other mental health conditions that could affect learning? Bouts of bipolar and all that. When those are considered, then the child and should be ruled out as part of the multiple ways of assessing. So it's multifaceted ways of assessing. Then if the learner has an average to high IQ, they do not have a physical disability that affects them, they do not have a mental health condition that's affecting learning, because there are mental health conditions that do not affect learning. So once they've considered to have all those in place and the child struggles for more than 6 months, then they're presenting with conditions that the symptoms that lead to specific learning disabilities. So that's where we need to be careful about. So next one, please. So what tools are there? The reason I said here is that a lot of the assessment tools that are used in the globe are not contextualized to the settings that you're in. We use a lot of assessment tools from the global settings. Are they wrong? No, they are perfect tools, well tested, but they are very costly when it comes to the African market. Anything, because you're paying anything from, what is 20,000 shillings? It's, anyway, 25,000 shillings to $1,000, so in between there for you to get the total number of tests. So what tests are there that are common out there? We have that word I can't pronounce, intelligence scale. We have the Kaufman assessment battery for children. Then we had the Woodcock, Johnson's. Those are the tests that are commonly known to assess for specific learning disabilities. So they clear, so they can do that at a cognitive test, the cognitive tests, which are intelligence tests. Then we have achievement tests. So some of them you have to actually test for the reading, and they give you reading manuals at the different levels, or math levels at different levels. And so those are again, it's most companies known for those are that. Plus also Pearson is also one big psychometric, offers psychometric assessments as well. Then of course we have processing tests to test the comprehension and the phonological processing, and test for auditory processing skills. So those are the levels of testing and the tools that are available in the international scale. Locally, what do people use locally to test? Maybe that's on the next slide, I'm not sure. Next slide, please. So locally, sorry, maybe I can mention who assesses us locally. So for most of the assessments that people have gotten are either from physicians again, or doctors to rule out the physical disabilities. And then the standardized way of testing for learning disability is done mostly by psychiatrists and psychologists. So even children psychologists or children doctors, pediatricians can pick up the physical disabilities, and then the neurological can be handled by the psychiatrists. And then the tools that are used that are called psychometric tests are run by psychologists who've been, of course, taught how to use the psychometric tests. Now, what is different? So in Kenya, again, the Kenya Institute of Special Education has some basic ways of assessing early screening. So some people have been referred to KISE, and so a lot of the diagnoses we get. But again, what we found is that quickly, and that's the problem we are solving, only the people who are really wealthy who can afford the tools that I showed earlier, and they are really beautiful tools. So we've come in between to say, okay, in between KISE and the psychometric test, what is in between that people can access? And that's what we are doing at Learning Differently. Next question. So that's why I'm introducing you to Dora, and Dora will be explained later. We have used a lot of psychological theories, the standards, children we've worked with. So we've worked with children before, and we've used those methods that help train children for inclusive learning to create a tool that can do early screening for people with learning disabilities. So it's at those levels. Don't look at the prices. We forgot to remove those. That's not the price we are charging, but we screen and give a report. And at the third level, we are able to create an individualized education plan for the child per term. So we are hoping that we can also be able to localize the interventions based on where you are in the world. But for now, we are testing in Kenya in about 20 schools starting next week. And then by August, we'll be able to give a good report on what we found on the ground to improve, so that we see what else needs to be done to improve the tool. So Alan will explain Dora later, but that is Learning Differently. That's why you can be assessed. And I hope this was of benefit to you. Yeah. That's where we are. You can come visit us.
We will share all of these details with everyone present. Before we move into talking about Dora and the magic tool that Phyllis will talk about, I just want to give 2 minutes for anyone if there are any questions. I saw a question in the chat, and I'm not sure if it's been answered. Can anybody test, or does it require qualifications? I do think Kuka touched upon it, but Kuka, if you just want to.
Yes. So what we've done, the assessment, we are calling it early screening. Early screening is that we are training teachers and parents to be able to identify the early symptoms that you can see. So the tool we are going to use is fed with all the psychological theories and standards that are required to test. So, but professionally as a psychologist, this should be done by a trained psychologist or a teacher. But there are symptoms that are available in a tool called the DSM-4, which is the diagnostic manual for learning disabilities. So those are the standards we are required to follow when we are creating an assessment tool. Yes, I can see Innocent, your hand.
Innocent, please, you can unmute yourself. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation and also for the first presenter. My question is mainly to understand who in the system is left out, maybe as a result of the school that are being, who in the system is being left out, but also mostly I'm focusing on the learner. Say, how can learners advocate for their own learning needs.
I didn't hear you. Who in the system does what?
Who in the system is being left out? Could be because of costs, because of technology, because of like you said at the end. I think before the contact slide.
I'm so excited because I just had a discussion earlier with Ministry of Education about the underserved and the last mile. So basically, the ask was, can we start creating options for that? We are all having discussions about testing the people who are in underserved or small the private schools that are very at the lower income space. So those are the discussions we're having. So if we use technology, of course, the underserved communities, but we are looking at using solar powered internet free systems that could assess in those areas, or even still use our normal checklist, because you see we've fed the system with the checklist that's a standard of what we need to do. So we still could probably go to some of those places with forms, but it will require a lot of TOT training to be able to equip more people to be able to assess for learning disabilities. So yeah, it's a journey that's starting, but I think the common agreement was, let's start with what we have and then keep moving further out and serve the underserved communities. Yeah. So of course, a lot of the schools without the infrastructure might be left out at the beginning, but also the government is very conscious about trying to start putting infrastructure in place for early assessments. Yes.
I think we can take one quick question from Nazia and then move into the demonstration of the tools. Nazia, please go ahead.
Yeah,
Ask
thank
for
you
this
so
now.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the wonderful presentation, Kuka. It was incredible. So I just would like to know two things basically. One is that I understand that your organization is very much Kenya specific, right? So I'm just wondering that in other parts of Africa, if we would like to get support, what kind of support could be provided? That is number one, and whether the tools could be adopted in other contexts. That is, and then the second question I have, that when you were saying early identification, how early or how soon you are actually recommending? To be more precise and specific, that after enrolling, because I understand that the learning content and the kind of suggested interventions need to be designed from the very beginning, based on the learning need of the children, right? So when you are saying early diagnosis, how early you are actually referring to? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We are starting in Kenya and not limited to Kenya. So we just want to test and keep doing that. Ghana is actually moving faster when it comes to even checking policy for early intervention. So we are doing this in Kenya and Ghana for the pilot, actually. So I forgot to mention that. What help do we need? The discussions we have, and Phyllis agrees with me, we need policy for compulsory teachers training, not compulsory, but we need teachers to be upskilled and to create awareness for that. So we need policy for that, policy for early screening also, so that we can push for that. So if you're asking for any country, we would need that kind of help. But also, giving us access to the countries you are at a high level, because we know this is a high level discussion, so that we are able to engage for that. So we are just starting. I got this call so that when we're just testing our 1.0 version. So I'm sure by the time we do 3.0, Alan will have really created something that can allow us to scale to any part or any part in Africa, because as guys are intention, even on our pricing, Africa is the market, but also and Africa needs to be aware so that we can do that. Then where is early intervention? Early intervention is after the child has learned the skills, at least for learning disabilities. Once they've gone through the nursery level of school, you can tell the child who is struggling to read the 3-letter words, they can't do the additions, that basic thing just before they get to the primary school would be the best time to test, because now that's when they've already been taught hand-eye coordination. When we do it too early, I mean, people develop differently. So we recommend from between 5 to 7 years is early screening. But Phyllis has her hand up. I think she needs to say something else. Yeah.
Sorry. Now, I want to address about that area identification. Kuka has explained very well. 5 to 7 years is a good time to do area identification. However, there are children who have already missed this identification in school and they are past that 9 years. So we say area identification is when, as a teacher, even yourself, even whether the child has gone to high school, or that you get this, or this call, or these, as a parent, we have parents who are coming out and they are suspecting, like now because of the increased awareness, that their children are not what they have been labeled before. So that's when you realize, or suspect, is the best time to go for identification. And for that child, it will be area identification, because previously you did not know, and you don't need to give up and say, okay, the child is no longer 5 years, is already 15 or even 18, but has not been identified, and then you'd give up. It is very important when you realize that this child, or even a teacher in class, you realize that even when they are in grade 9, grade 10, over there, it's still area identification. So don't delay identification regardless of what the age or grade the child is. Thank you.
Thanks, Phyllis. Thanks, Kuka. I think to Nazia's first question, we'll also be covering it in the whole group discussion, where we can talk about how these tools can be contextualized to, we can pick up a country example and figure out how to make that work. So I think Nazia's question feeds into that. Edward, I'm so sorry. We'll just move into the next section. We have more time for questions as well. I have also seen your question in the chat, but just in the interest of time, I'm going to hand over to Phyllis to talk about her tools, and then to Kuka to talk about Dora. And then we can go into the whole group sharing. Phyllis, are we audible? Would you like to start sharing about the tools? I think she might be having connection issues. Kuka, would you like to go first then? Can we hear about Dora first? Alan, if that's okay.
Sorry, I had muted. I've been talking all along. I didn't know that I had muted. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so yes, you can share that tool. With the assessment tool, yes, before we go to the magic book. For us, we have developed an assessment tool, and basically this tool is not it is not something unique. It's something that you can when you go online, there are so many assessment methods that you can just use and identify. You find that these tools are common in assessment, in screening. This is a screening tool, not an assessment tool. As Kuka explained, assessment needs to be done by a trained psychologist or an educationist who is already trained, but anyone can screen. And I say, like, any parent who has any parent, you are already a pediatrician, there's that measurement, you place your hand on your child's forehead to tell that they have they may be having a running nose, a flu, or something like that. So a screening tool is something like that, like you already have seen the signs. You have seen something that this child is not getting the alphabet, cannot do the 3-letter words, cannot do 2 letters to make a sound. Those are the signs that will tell you that this child has a something. Like even when I said about partial hearing impairment, this child is following you to see what you are speaking so that she can tell what the words you are pronouncing. So those are the signs. And so this screening tool is nothing, it is not elaborate, but it is something that you can use. It is available. And if a child, if you tick all these signs and you get 70% of these, what we have put there, you can realize that, yeah, this child now needs further assessment. That is when now this child requires to be taken for
Thanks, Phyllis. I'll now hand over to Kuka and we can take questions in the end. I also see a lot of questions in the chat that Kuka and Phyllis, we can also answer post this.
Okay, fantastic.
Please go
Thank you. Thank you. So for us guys, Phyllis has done that basic school tool for screening in schools. I studied learning disabilities for my master's, and I'm really trying to get a PhD scholarship to continue the study. So this is so what we've done, we used the standards placed by the DSM-5 text review to be able to create a tool that's called Dora. And it's a conversational tool. I think Alan will take you through it, and then I'll tell you one more element that we've added at the end. Okay. Alan.
Okay, thank you, Kuka. My name is Alan. We've been working closely with Kuka as the tech partners. I'm super excited to demonstrate Dora here. So let me just share my screen. Please let me know whether you can see my screen.
It's up, Alan. We can see it. We
Yeah.
can see the pre-assessment.
All right. So Dora is a chatbot tool. What it does sorry, does pre-assessments, does assessments, and gives you a report of the assessments that have been done. So you can have a conversation with it. The conversations are dependent on the age of the child. So the responses that a 10-year-old gets are very different from the responses that a 13, 15, 18-year-old gets. So we've really trained this model to kind of understand the age and know how to contextualize the conversation. So as you can see here, I did start a conversation. I said hi. So Dora introduced themselves, and they are a clinical psychologist and so on. So asked for my name. I told it my name. Nice to meet you. How old are you? I gave it age of 15. So as you can see, how have you been feeling lately? So it keeps asking you questions. So this is part of the screening now, right? So this could take around 15 minutes, the screening, before it now gets to starting the assessment and now give you a report. So the whole process basically takes around an hour. So yeah, so let me just take you through this. So after answering that, I told it I'm quite down. This is not going well. Things are not going well in school. I'm finding it hard to comprehend and understand things. Give me a response. I'm sorry to hear that things have been tough for you. When you mentioned finding it hard to comprehend and understand, can you maybe give us more about what specifically you've been finding difficult? I told it I find reading first as a big issue for me. Give me a response right there. You can see we have a response. Thank you for sharing with me, Alan. Let me just push this. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you for sharing with me, Alan. Does this difficulty with reading quickly affect how you manage your schoolwork or test? I said yes. And the screening goes on. It tells me, I see. That must be challenging for you. Do you find it difficult to stay focused in schoolwork or during classes and so on? So that's basically it's quite a lengthy one, but with the interest of time, I just want to take you through.
Maybe let me jump in before you add. So what we are doing with the questioning is that it's key to rule out all the things I said: anxiety, depression, PTSD. Then we go to an intelligence test, and then now it quizzes you on the specific learning disabilities, so that it's able to generate a report for the full assessment. So that's what we've done. It's a longer screening. Even as guys, we also say, I know it's written assessment here, but we are doing research, so we are still calling it a screening. And if you notice it had a thumbs up and thumbs down, is because we'll be using that when we are going to test the questions to see that the questions worked in our Kenyan context in different villages. So we are going to 20 different schools, and then we are rolling it out in different countries to be able to conceptualize for them as well. So basically, yeah, so it's a screening that goes on. You can take a break, because it takes long. It takes between actually an hour and an hour and a half. So you can take a break and it still remembers where you are when you key in. So that's what we are testing, so that we improve the second version that's deliverable on the online platform. But yeah, you can go to the assessment, maybe the diagnosis, the assessment you found.
Okay, thank you, Kuka, for giving a bit of context to what the first part of it does, which is majorly like finding out whether the kid has depression or PTSD. And now for the assessment, this is where now the tool will be able to know this kid is suffering from ADHD, this kid is dyslexic, and so on. So they'll be able to give a valid report based on that. So you can see the conversation continues going on. So it keeps asking you questions. So this is just for you to understand and give you a very valid report that's based on the issues you're facing. So you can see it tells me here. Let's shift our focus a bit. Have you experienced any significant or distressing events in your life that continue to affect you today? I said yes, and the conversation kept going. I told it being around people gives me anxiety, so it gives me another question to answer. So yeah, you could make the answers as short as possible. As I said earlier, this is it gets context based on how kids of different ages will be able to comprehend stuff, right? So yeah, so that's about it.
Did you have an assessment? Did you have a sample report? Because it was, I wanted
Yeah.
them to see the sample report it generates.
Yeah, we
It's
do
also
have a
very
report.
basic, yeah.
Yeah.
Just show them the report.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the part where it diagnoses you. Yeah. So yeah, let's go now to the report section. So after all that, it gives you now a report. So you can see after running that test, psychological assessment report, the name, age, school, referral reason. So Alan was referred for an assessment due to concerns about his mental well-being, academic performance, and social interactions. It gives you a background information of your issues, assessment procedures, diagnosis. So as you can see right here, let me just take that back a little bit. Yeah, so you can see areas of attention, most likely suffering from ADHD, and you can see the criteria met, onset and duration, anxiety symptoms, and major depressive disorder is the issue here. So it gives a recommendation and educational support, therapeutic interventions, and family guidance, and finally a summary, a brief summary of the steps going forward. So maybe I could just read this out real quick. Alan is experiencing significant symptoms indicative of major depressive disorder and ADHD with notable social anxiety. These conditions are impacting his academic performance and social interactions. Immediate attention to therapeutic interventions and educational support is recommended to address these challenges effectively. This report will now be reviewed internally before being shared with your guardian to discuss the next steps